On Thursday, Donald Trump Jr. took the stand in his father's New York civil fraud trial, and the answers that he gave were actually pretty interesting. Instead of pleading the fifth, Don Jr., mm, you know, essentially admitted to signing off on numerous allegedly inaccurate financial statements for the family's real estate business. His excuse is, I don't really know what I was doing. Oh, interesting. Now, look, on Wednesday, he told the court, when asked about his experience, that he doesn't really know much about accounting. That I can actually believe. He went on to say that he and other executives didn't know much and didn't need to know much because, hey, look, we trust the accountants, right? We pay them so that they can do the things. He also said he doesn't really know about the GAAP rules or other accounting standards, or the accounting standards, the board that sets those rules. So he says, look, I don't know about numbers. What numbers, evaluations, it's all gibberish to me. I don't know. I have no idea. It's all Greek. I don't know. I don't get it. I just sign the things. They put a paper in front of me and I sign it. Oh, so wait, you're the trustee of the company, and you're supposed to know a little bit about these things, right? You're supposed to know enough about accounting and enough about what's going on in the business to be the final say in the numbers. Sure, it's the accountant's job to, do all the stuff, do all the accounting, but it is your job to review their work for any discrepancies and then sign off on it as final approval. But apparently Don Jr. is like, not my job. I don't really do anything. So what do you actually do? What was your job as trustee in the company? What did you actually do here? So that's the big question, because apparently you didn't do your job at all. At least if you believe his own testimony, which I really don't. So on Thursday, by the way, he continued to throw the accounting team under the bus. That's his defense. Classic blame game. He says, I rely on the accounting team to tell me what is accurate. That's why we have accountants. When the prosecution brought up a representation letter the Trump organization provided to Mazars, the accounting firm, which cut ties with the business last year, saying that it could no longer stand behind some 10 years worth of financial statements it prepared for the company, Don Jr. acknowledged that he had signed these documents, but didn't remember anything more about them specifically. Quote, I would have sat with the relevant parties and checked with the legal department. If they assured me that these things were fine, I would have signed off. For purposes of accounting, I rely on the accountants, adding that they have more information and details, quote, than I would have ever had. Okay, but valuations are again, this is how much the company is worth from appraisals. So these valuations, again, they don't have to be exact. They don't have to be 100% down to the penny. They've got to be pretty much in the ballpark, okay? Pretty close. In order to get an approximate value and to fall into a range of what these companies will be able to loan you based on that information. It's got to be fairly accurate here in order for these companies to make good decisions on how much they will lend someone else. Because again, their business model essentially depends on that. They will either make money or lose money based on who they lend to. I mean, so it's fairly important to know, to have an idea of these valuations, and to have them be, for the most part, fairly accurate and representative. Okay? So now, that said, Don Jr. insisted that a sign-off on these documents, these valuations that were, again, fraudulent, they were fraudulent. He says it's not a symbol of a yes or no. Okay, then what is it? Then what's your signature? Either you're saying, I approve of this, and I'm putting in my signature, or you're saying, well, no, I don't approve of this, so I'm not going to put my signature. But he's just saying, I don't know, so I put my signature on it anyway. Because that's what smart people do. What? Now, the real kicker came when prosecutors then introduced more evidence that he may have actually, really known what was going on. In another document, Mazars said the trustees of the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust, which was set up in the elder Trump became president, were in fact responsible for the veracity of the information contained within. So, again, Don Jr. said he only signed them, but he didn't trust anyone, or he had trusted others with the numbers. And so if there was a discrepancy, if there were fraud, then it's actually their fault and not mine. Judge Arthur Engren had asked Don Jr. If he had anything to do with the statement of financial condition. He replied, "No, I did not, Your Honor. I've signed dozens of these as my time as trustee." When prosecutors pressed Don Jr. about being told by, among others, a Forbes reporter who inquired about apparent errors in the firm's financial statements to Deutsche Bank, he had dodged the question about intent, again, laying the responsibility for any due diligence at the bank's feet, and testified that he expected financial institutions to perform their own due diligence before making any decisions. Okay, but part of that is relying on the proper information. Yes, they have their own side that they have to go and their own metrics of which to make these decisions on, but a lot of it is also based on making sure that they get the proper information from the person who is trying to get a loan. If you're not furnishing them with correct information, knowingly not furnishing them with false information, that is fraud. That's the definition of fraud. You're going to them to get a loan. And so you have to give them, to the best of your ability, to the best of your knowledge, information that is correct so that they can make a good judgment based on that. And again, if you knowingly gave them false information, that is fraud. And again, that information, according to the court, according to Engren's decision, he said this stuff was fraudulent. This was not right, incorrect. But look, you see what he's doing. Oh, see, it's my accountant. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. He gave us bad information. I just signed off on it. I'm an idiot and don't really pay attention to what's going on in the business, even though that I was put as a trustee by my father. I don't know what's going on. I don't really care. Now, do you believe that? I don't believe that. I mean, why would the accountants, just decide on their own, oh yeah, I'm going to deflate and inflate the valuations of these properties on a whim. And it just so happens I'm going to inflate the value when the company wants to get a loan, and then I'm going to deflate them for tax time so that, we don't owe as much in taxes. That's, as an accountant, that I'm going to take that, and just do that on my own without anybody ordering me to. BS. I don't believe it at all.
Bullshit.
Who would? Ridiculous excuse. That excuse, this pun, just doesn't add up. CPAs do not randomly cook the books unless there's a good reason to. No, and I mean relatively, right? Because there's no real good reason to cook the books. But the reason that it happens is because the boss told them to do it. They were ordered to do it on high. But look, this defense from Don Jr. and Eric Trump, who testified after him, is the same thing. It's either, I don't remember, I don't know, I don't really remember the details, and it wasn't my job. Somebody else did it. It wasn't me. Passing the buck. Trump Jr. testified that the company relied heavily on an outside CPA, Donald Bender, as a point person for just about anything we did accounting-wise. Now, Bender had testified last month that the Trump company wasn't forthcoming with all the information required for these financial statements. Forthcoming. So again, these financial statements being used in order to get loans from banks, and this CPA is like, they weren't always forthcoming with this. I really had to pull teeth to try to, get them to even furnish me with the basic information. Well, that to me tells me that there was somebody up there, up the food chain, whether it be Trump Jr., Trump himself, that was saying, okay, here's what I want to do. Make the numbers work for me. that I can get the most money that I can. Again, it's like what Michael Cohen had testified earlier. Hey, Trump's like a mob boss. He kind of tells you his intent, not spelling it out explicitly, but saying, here's what I want, and then you infer how to do it based on that in order to make the boss happy. And so it might not be explicit, but the intent is there. Get me to these numbers however you can, but this is what I want to see. And so that's how he gets people to do fraud on his behalf. And so that's what ultimately has already been, I think, proven. But to the fact of how much input had come from Trump and Trump Jr. and Eric, how much fraud was explicitly ordered, or not explicitly, but implicitly ordered by them, and how much they owe as a result of that fraud. So that's it. Now, getting back to Don Jr., finally, look, his argument is basically him saying, I'm massively incompetent and shouldn't be trusted to run anything, not much less a giant multinational or multi-billion-dollar company. Because obviously, I'm not going to pay attention to anything. Fraud could be happening right next to me. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't care. I don't pay attention. Is that really what he wants to do? Is that really the argument that he wants to make? Well, I mean, it kind of tells you that that's his defense. And I think that's going to be the defense of Eric Trump. I mean, we've already seen some of that in the testimony today. Is it going to be, Ivanka Trump? Or is it going to be Trump himself, Trump Sr., that's going to say, I had no idea what was going on in my company. It wasn't my fault. Somebody else did it. And I just signed off on all the paperwork. Well, then you're showing that you're deeply incompetent, that you don't know what's going on in your company, that you're seeing fraud to the levels we've never even seen before, ever. And you didn't know what was happening. And somehow, of course, you didn't know what was happening, but it benefited you greatly. Gee, I didn't look into it. I just thought I'm just that good of a businessman. I'm not buying any of it. And you shouldn't either.